Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Cambridge Zero Climate Change Festival. For the best experience, I suggest you change your settings. If you click on the top right where it says View to the speaker view, that's probably the best view for you to get the best experience. So once again, welcome to Cambridge Zero Climate Change Festival. My name is Manish Datta. I'm a Senior Associate at the University of Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership and Director of Membership and Operations at the UK Green Building Council. And it's my great pleasure to warmly welcome you to this new virtual event brought to you by Cambridge Zero and Cambridge University Press. And what a week it's been. A true festival, offering a whole range of free events and sessions for all ages, from stories and games through to panel discussions and papers presenting the latest scientific research. And over this week, we've been giving you a taste of the great work and tremendous initiatives underway right across the University of Cambridge and in Cambridge itself and beyond, to show how we can all make a difference and live much more sustainably. And it's quite poignant that, of course, we start today remembering the millions who sacrificed their lives to protect our country on Remembrance Day. And perhaps even more poignant that we note that communities right across the USA yesterday were also bringing about change in their own way. And today is very much on day 3 of the Climate Change Festival, is very much about communities. And I suggest you look at the full agenda, and I will post some links to that later. The day is packed full of amazing sessions about localism and communities, starting with a couple of sessions before us and finishing at 6 p.m. this evening. So lots and lots for you to get involved in. But in this session in particular, I'm delighted to welcome Afsana and Annie, and I'll introduce them in more fully in a minute. But today we're going to hear about how local communities can make a change and activate action locally, campaign against harmful things like air pollution, warmer homes and green spaces and more. And I've really observed, as I'm sure you have, in the last year, even before the COVID period, that communities and local groups have been really bringing about tremendous change. And of course, in the last 6 to 8 months, we've noticed how communities have come together to help each other to deal with the issues that the pandemic has brought with it. So it feels like the climate change, the climate crisis will be tackled and is being tackled at a very, very local level in communities. So I'm delighted, as I said, to welcome Afsana and Annie. Let's start with you, Afsana. Let me give you a bit of an intro to you, if I may. Afsana is the organizer of Tower Hamlets. She's helped win campaigns for electric ice cream vans in Victoria Park, road safety on the Mile End Road, and is currently working on campaigns on equal opportunities in education and health for ethnic minorities. She led a successful campaign with Global Action Team in 2018 and increased the conversation around the important topic of air pollution and the illness that brings. She's developing BAME-led institutions in Tower Hamlets to tackle the health inequality in the borough after the shocking report from Public Health England on COVID-19 and the disproportionate effects of that on BAME communities. Her work for BAME communities has been recognised by the Queen in 2019. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Afsana. A warm welcome to you. We look forward to hearing your presentation. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Manish. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Very good to be here with you all. For me, it's a new hope and it's new beginning after such a great, powerful week we have seen, especially last few days. And I'm so glad to be here with a great number of people who would like to make change in the community and allowing me to learn from you and also share some of my knowledge in community organizing and making change in air pollution in my local neighborhood. So as Manish said, my name is Afsana and I'm a community organizer for Citizens UK. I particularly organize Tower Hamlets Citizen. Before I go into my project about air pollution, I would like to give you a little bit about journey, why as a British migrant woman like myself concerned about air pollution. And I have got so many other issues, like Islamophobia is a big one, but why am I particularly working on air pollution? So my personal reason was since 2014, I have been experiencing and suffering from nose bleeding. This is when I started my university in East London, in Myland. I live in Kent. As I'm talking right now, I'm talking to you all from Kent, which is much greener and less polluted probably than one of the center part of London, which is Hamlet. And so I remember doctors were saying a lot of things that probably this is one of the issue, a lot of big word they use to show that this is what they found in my blood or this and that. I never really understood. And this is when I actually heard a story from a pregnant woman in Hamlets who said that apparently doctor said to her she needs to stop smoking, and herself she never touched cigarette, and she goes, how can you tell me that? And then the doctor done the test, and then they found that um, the amount of pollution that, or bad pollution, I guess, yeah, pollution, the area she's living, it almost seems like she does 10 cigarette takes 10 cigarette a day. This is how bad it was, that it was affecting her baby in her. So these two stories, my own story and hearing the story of that woman who was worried about her giving birth of her child, she was saying that we cannot afford to live in a very posh area where probably they have much more ruling in place. So what can we do? We need to work on our neighborhood. And as myself, I also realized that this is where I studied, and I also work in Hamlets. I need to make this space better for my own self and also for my community. So I found two stories, and then we began working on that. So in my workshop today, I will mainly focus on how community organizing and citizen science method helped us improving air quality in our neighborhood and make change in our local park, and also how did we build a strong relationship with politicians and local council while they have many other issues also to deal with. So first I will share my screen so you can follow and see some of the pictures, just to give you a little bit of um, the journey so far. And can you see my screen? If yeah, cool.
Yes, we can, Afsana, yes.
Right, thank you. So
it might be better, Afsana, if you did sort of presenter view so that we can see the slide fully. If you just click down on this, yeah.
If I do that, I think I will be losing my side. Okay, let's see.
Okay, that's fine. If you, whatever suits you.
Yeah, is that okay?
Yeah, we can see it. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. So the first question is, why did we choose these two methods? Why citizen science training and why community organizing? So the first answer to that one is that around us, there's so many protests going on every day. Our screen is full of pictures of people screaming and asking for environmental justice. And I remember not very long ago, about 2 years ago, there's a bunch of students from Queen Mary University of London, where I studied. They also were on the street, and they were also asking for a lot of change. But the very next year, when I actually spoke to those people, not much actually changed. Not much policy change. We were on the street. We did occupy the street. We did take a lot of attention, but there wasn't so much change that we wanted to see. So we thought the best way we can go, instead of mobilizing, we'll start organizing people. We'll start organizing around the issues that matters to us all. So we went to the mosque to hear from them. What are your issues? Yes, Islamophobia isn't one of the issues. They also had issues like housing problem, damp housing, health issues. And then we started actually connecting the dot. damp housing and health issues are connected to also the level of pollution in your area, and perhaps why we have more children born with asthma today. It is because their parents are living in a housing condition that is very poor, and it is poor because of two reasons. Of course, the condition, as well as also the area that they're living in. So we use community organizing method, which is to organize. So we first went to the institution, we went to the churches to go and listen to them, the synagogue, the primary school, universities, including Queen Mary University of London, mosque. Then we listen to the people in each institution, find out what are their issues, and then we plan and we did action, and then we negotiated. And throughout my workshop, I will show how each of these stage was followed. The first one is organize. These are the institution we went to talk to, and everybody knew the statistics about that air pollution is very bad in our area. But despite that, we wanted our people to come to a citizen science training. This is where you learn more about air pollution, not just what the statistics says, but you learn about the stories. Statistic does not present the stories. So in that this workshop, people came to hear about my story. I came to hear about many other people's stories around health, around housing conditions. And after that, through citizen science training, we came to know how do we go and find out what are the air pollution level in our neighborhood. So we used the tube where we learned how to use the tube. We put it up on the street, 50 different places in our neighborhood, and then 6 weeks we kept it up, and then we brought it down, sent it to the lab, and then they actually said each of these tube where it was located and what is the pollution level in this area. And most of the tubes were actually put around like nursery school, primary school, hospitals, and the results were shocking. The statistics is a number, but when our people came to see that this is the level of pollution in their area, they became really angry. They wanted to, this is where they were reading, they're seeing like how often do they go to this area, and by staying there for 10 minutes, how much level of pollution that they actually take in, and also their children. And these process really helped us to build some sort of anger within our people in our mosque and our churches. And one thing was very shocking, that the number of people using the road in Mali and in Watchable, there's two big highway. And what we also found from our research, that people in this area, they don't own car, but they're actually the victim of somebody else is using their highway. So that also made them angry, like because of other people action, our children are being affected by that. Then we went to listen to each of these organizations after seeing what the results showed and what people are saying. After listening to the people, these are the big few issues that we came across that people really want to see, like school streets is one of them, low emission zone and ice cream van, and also we wanted, there's just so much work going on in our community, especially in Tower Hamlet. There's so many small groups of people coming together. So our aim was to show and connect ourselves with other people, because in that way we can build power, and we can also see what they are doing, and so we can collaborate with them, rather than this is not a competition, this is not a like award-winning work. It's more about like making sure our community, our neighborhood is a better place for all. So we did that. We also found out how each of these issues can be broke down to smaller and tangible tasks for us to go ahead, and also how much power do we have to how can we actually make change. So we did power analysis in our borough to see who is doing this sort of work, who's got the power, how much power the mayor has. Should we just go behind the Tower Hamlet mayor, or is also the London mayor, because of the London mayor putting the whole policy around the ULEZ zone, where it will stop just in Whitechapel. So what is going to happen, so that everyone come from outside London, they will just park to in Whitechapel, and then they will actually go to zone 1. We are in zone 2, so we understood that our area will be much more packed. So we also wanted to see, shall we actually increase the parking system, parking rate, how much should they pay? In that way we can prevent people parking in our area. Also, we can raise some, we can also increase money, so we can have better parking a little bit outside the school area. So we took actions, and here I am going to talk about that. What are the actions? So one of the action was to work with ice cream van, and we saw, when we actually talked to ice cream van and also many other organizations, we felt that even ice cream van themselves, they want to actually become environment friendly. So a lot of parents were complaining in summer when they go to the park, they want to enjoy some family time. However, because of ice cream van being there, and they're keeping their engine on in order to keep their ice, you know. So they realize that it is making our area more polluted. So we asked if we could make all the ice cream van, especially around the Victoria Park, become electric. And also then ice cream van, they were saying there's not enough power station, like where you can charging point. So we said, okay, great. First, our ask was to the mayor, can you help all the ice cream van become electric? And the second ask was to the mayor, can you make sure there's also enough power charging points, so ice cream van can have their each enough, so they can actually do their business, because we don't want to see people are becoming unemployed in our borough. So the mayor said that's great, and by 2022 we are hoping to see the mayor agreeing to you know, making all the changes that he promised us to make. Um, this is one of the area we worked with the community. Then we had also another action from young people in the school. And this is our action number 2. Again, we use the same method, citizen science training. And this time we didn't use the tube. We had also a device, which is kind of like a phone, and you actually hold it and you go around your school, your neighborhood, and it will actually tell you while you're walking what's the level of pollution in that particular area, and you stop and then you go and find out why this area has more air pollution than probably the other road. And it could be because of this, because of parents driving, could be construction, could be the highway. So we found some of the areas with school children like that, and they were very engaged. They found out that they're very next to the highway, um, and this is affecting, especially when they're in a playground, it affecting their concentration level. And also a lot of children got asthma. And they actually engaged with Rachel Blake, who is the deputy mayor of Tower Hamlets Tower Hamlets. And herself has a story that we heard from her. Her children got also asthma. So it was really easy for us to actually come in a common ground, that her self-interest was um, also to protect her children. And then the children also want to make sure that the mayor can do something in her power to change. So we asked her to engage with us, and also how do we communicate with the vehicle in a highway. So it could be like certain time, especially school hour, the big vehicle not to use that road. So we put actually schools, basically school street, but on a highway as well. And the mayor agreed to work with us to change that. Also, the school children, they made a video which I'm going to play in a bit. I hope I have Manish, if you could actually update me how long I have.
Yeah, you've got 5 to 7 minutes of Sana.
Okay, great. That's perfect. So I just wanted to probably first show two methods: citizen science training and community organizing training, how this allow our community to learn more about air pollution and also get a little bit angry and do something for their air pollution rather than just depending on the statistics. And also we wanted to show you, I wanted to show you that how we engage with the mayor of Tower Hamlets and how we built a strong relationship. And they also later on they funded us £10,000 to do some more work in air pollution because Tower Hamlets was one of the I think third highest borough in London when it comes to air pollution. So it was in their self-interest as well as in our self-interest. So it worked very well in that sense. And also like with the ice cream van, they themselves wanted to have electric car van, so as us, and they just wanted so and we could do all that through community organizing, through listening to them, through bringing everybody around the table so we can hear each other. I'm going to play a video that the students made, and they wanted this video to be on this mayor's page, and also shared so many other parents can learn how they can do one thing in the morning to protect their children, which is probably walk to school instead of going to the using the car. And this particular school has 85% parents, they actually walk to their children's school rather than actually taking car, or even if they do take car, they actually park quite far away so it doesn't affect their children or others. If it allows me to work, if it is working, then I'm going to share my video now. And then I will have some space if you have any question for me.
This is our Tower Hamlet story. It might also be yours too.
Here is the highway.
It's a very busy and important road that takes very busy and important people into London.
Over the years, this road has become busier and busier.
Do you know who else is busy and important?
So what's the problem?
1 in 10 Londoners under 18 years of age has asthma.
Road transport causes almost half of London's air pollution.
Children are most vulnerable to air pollution, but we are all affected. London's air is some of the dirtiest in Europe.
The vehicles that use it produce harmful fumes.
There are lots of nasty things in these fumes,
such as carbon monoxide and particulate matter.
These are big words for horrible, nasty things floating around in our atmosphere.
Our amazing school is right next to the highway.
The nasty fumes travel from the highway all the way to our school
to our playground.
This can make us feel unwell. If we are unwell, it is difficult to learn new things.
What can we do about this?
I know, we can plant trees around our school to add lots of fresh air and block fumes and noise pollution. I have another idea. We can ask people to avoid using cars if they can. How would the people get to work?
They could walk, they could ride a scooter, they could take the bus or train, or they could use a hoverboard.
There are lots of ways to prevent pollution if we just get creative and think about it, so please.
Help protect our school from pollution. Spread the message, not pollution. We can make a difference.
So this is one of the videos the young people made. So I will perhaps just summarize my what my learning was from working with uh, especially BAME community, engaging them in air pollution. As I said beginning of my conversation, that it is not easy to work with communities, Black, Asian, ethnic minority communities, where they have, many other issues going on. Of course, Black community, they are suffering from racism, so as Muslim community with Islamophobia. But what I realized that everything, there's environmental injustice that is also itself injustice and affecting the BME community probably more than any other communities, because they're probably living in a more polluted area because the rent is very cheap in those sort of areas. Also, their children are affected. Also, it's just like we've drawn a very good connection, which I don't have the slide to show, like a child born in Tower Hamlets, a polluted area, they already have 7% less lung capacity than children in different areas, and that affects their education, that affects them going to good schools and university, therefore job. So the whole thing, injustice just recycle. So when we actually engage with mosque and Black-led churches, we did use this scripture, not to blackmail them, but to show that your scripture is asking you to look after the environment, and itself is injustice. You cannot just pick up on one, but you have to see that these are all connected. The one reason for probably, like at the beginning, we failed to communicate with the BME community because we couldn't show how each of their problems are interconnected. For example, health right now, COVID, from Public Health England, this is my current campaign that I'm working on. It actually said that pollution could be one of the major factor why people in Tower Hamlet or Tower Hamlet Borough is mostly affected by, they've got highest number of positive cases, and it is quite easily, you can prove that, it is because of that. So how do we actually create a language? There's a language barrier, not just English, you have to translate it Bengali or any other languages. I think it's the barrier, communication barrier. How do you communicate with them? Use easy English, use their mosque, imams, to talk about that in Friday sermon, talk about on Sunday, we use that Sunday services to talk about environment. We created an engaging conversation in there. We made sure that we are not representing anybody. We're not talking on behalf of anybody. If anybody said, this is my children have got asthma, we always said, what are you going to do about it? We need more BAMEs to be around the table so they can have that space to talk for themselves and make their own decision, and they can engage with power. And this is why probably both of my actions been very successful. We went to show the real representation of the community. I will stop here. If you have any question, please, as Manish is communicating with you via chat, please do question me. And I believe after my workshop, there will be Anet, and then we will have probably a Q&A session. So I'll leave it.
That's right. Thanks, Afsana. That was so passionate, and that came across really strongly. Yes, let's save ourselves for the questions to the end of the session after we've had our second presentation. Please do post them in the chat if you get a chance. But yes, I want to now turn our attention to Annie Pickering. Welcome, Annie. Thank you for joining us this morning. Annie works for Friends of the Earth, and she supports groups to take climate action locally. Did you know there are over 200 climate action groups right across England, Wales, and Northern Ireland that the Friends of the Earth supports? And Annie supports groups particularly in the East and Central region, where most recently the Oxford Friends of the Earth succeeded in getting Oxfordshire County Council to commit to doubling tree cover. Let me repeat that, doubling tree cover across the county. And Annie is currently working with a variety of people, looking at how we can ensure climate is on the agenda for the Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Metro Mayor elections coming up in May 2021. Annie has a long history of divestment and other student campaigning, and is also working with other young people in the run-up to COP26, of course, next year in Glasgow, to give the youth a platform for action on climate locally and globally. Wow, that's quite a biography, Annie. So after that brilliant presentation with Afsana, I now hand over to you for our second presentation. Annie.
Thank you. Yeah, I won't introduce myself because that is pretty much everything about me. But I just want to thank Afsana again for that presentation. It was like really, really good to hear. And like that's the sort of work we need in different communities on the different issues that matter to them to make a difference. And I think the way that you did that, working with the people who it affects most, and like working out what issues matter to them, just shows like how we can have success. I guess what I'm going to talk about is a little bit more broader, sort of wider, sort of how Friends of the Earth are supporting groups to do things like that. So I think it's important we kind of remember Afsana's like really good local example in our minds as I kind of talk at a bit of a bigger like scale. I'm just going to share a couple of slides. Sometimes they take a while to load, but hopefully you can see those. So yeah, I'm the regional campaigns organizer for Friends of the Earth. I've been working here since July. And that's my region. And as you can see, Cambridgeshire is one of the regions where I'm there to support local groups. So Friends of the Earth have three main campaigns we're working on at the moment. The biggest one is climate change, and it is incredibly broad, as you would expect. It's primarily about encouraging people to take action locally on climate change. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about how that works through a video. We've also got a campaign to double tree cover because we know that trees can make a massive difference in capturing carbon and keeping spaces green and with less air pollution. And that campaign is having some really good successes. And then the plastic campaign, which I've had less involvement with since I've started, but there is work happening there. I'm also going to now share a video which kind of summarizes why Friends of the Earth is working the way we are in relation to climate action, and why we think that this way of supporting groups to take action locally will have a bigger impact. So hopefully this will work.
Annie, you might want to show it in presenter mode if that's possible. Thank you. That's the right button, yeah. Thank you.
So I don't know about you, but I love that video. And I was also watching being like, yeah, it's like what Afsana is doing, getting like groups locally to take action and make that difference. And that's sort of how Friends of the Earth are sort of imagining to be working. I don't want to show you the video again. So yeah, there's over 200 groups in the UK that we're supporting, and they really vary. So some of them are newly started groups of people who are really interested in lobbying their council, either to adopt the climate action plan, which covers loads of different things they can do in terms of like housing, transport, schools, education in relation to the environment. Or some of them are focused on specific issues. So perhaps there is an incinerator or coal mine near them, and that's what they want to campaign against, or there's a particularly busy road or a road planned or whatever it is, the big local issue. And they're lobbying their councils to take action. As part of sort of being connected with Friends of the Earth, they have a chance to sort of get involved with national actions, and so that the examples and stuff that's happening locally can be spread at a national wider level so people can see the impact. And there's also space to do the practical work. So whether that is planting trees, installing solar panels collectively within your street and starting to sort of make that action themselves. I just wanted to share a small example of sort of how these groups work. So yeah, most of them, the way Friends of the Earth have been working, this has only really been about a year so far. But yeah, Leicester Council published their climate plans, but Climate Action Leicester and Climate Action Leicestershire, so two separate groups working together, realised it wasn't particularly strong. So they made an effort to talk to the councillors, be like, look, this just isn't strong enough. And they did a really effective way of doing that by each sort of emailing in and talking to them with their personal stories, being like, I'm from Leicester, this is what I'm like, these are the issues that matter to me, this is why you need to take action on climate change. And everyone had their own personal stories, but obviously there were some shared issues about what they wanted to see in relation to improved climate plans from Leicester. So they wrote to all the councillors, they filled the balcony at their meeting. So this was pre-COVID times when we could meet in person. And the council recognised that perhaps there were more things that they could be doing in order to take action on climate change. And they're now consulting with the wider community on what they should be doing. And there are stories like that happening all across Cambridgeshire and elsewhere, of councils working with communities to work out what they actually can do. I'm going to skip this bit in the interest of time, but just to say that we, as part of a group, do sort of take part in national actions, and there was a National Action Week back in October around the comprehensive spending review that the government was going to produce, which was since delayed because of COVID. But this is quite a nice slide to show you that people were quite creative in how they could get their message out as to what they wanted to see in a green and fair future, kind of COVID secure. This is in someone's kitchen, as you can tell. And if the GIF is working, there is a little GIF. I'm not sure if it's working to sort of share those stories. There we go, there's the GIF. Share these stories online, because we couldn't necessarily meet in people in person, and show what changes could happen at a local distance. This is a really interesting map showing sort of where current cycle routes are and where they wanted better cycle routes within their local area. And they did local surveys. So I just wanted to talk really briefly about what is happening in Cambridgeshire. So there's two groups that I'm supporting, but I would love to be supporting more. So if you're already part of a group or interested in taking action locally, do get in contact with me. So we've got a group in East Cambridgeshire who are quite connected with the council and well, last time I spoke to them, we're interested in lobbying the council to make sure the green home grants that the government is giving out about insulating homes, they felt like the council weren't making the best use of that money, and they realised that there's loads of homes within East Cambridgeshire which need insulating, and they want that money to be used to insulate the homes that need it the most in order to cut energy bills and carbon. In Cambridge, I know, as this sort of festival is showing, there's a lot of climate action already happening in Cambridge, which is really good. And I know some of the Friends of the Earth people from Cambridge are looking into restarting the Climate Action Network and linked into what's happening. If we've got time, maybe later, it would be really interesting to hear what is happening locally where you are, or perhaps what would you like to see? What are the big issues locally? Where do you think you can make a difference? I'm briefly going to talk about what we think is quite a big opportunity for May 2021. So it will be the election for the Metro Mayor across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, which is currently James Palmer, who is Conservative. But this slide here shows you sort of how much potential power this person has. So they sort of share a combined authority, which is representatives from each of the main councils across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. and they have quite a bit of money available, as well as being able to impact on transport, sort of what works locally in terms of transport routes, and planning in terms of where houses are built and to what quality they are built. There's a few sort of quotes there of showing that, sadly, that one from October 2009, Mayor Palmer did not want to be declaring a climate emergency. So there's definitely work that needs to be done for them to be taking action. And this map just shows you where it is. I think it's really interesting to be thinking about the Metro Mayor elections in light of COVID. We saw Andy Burnham up in Greater Manchester, you know, really on the national platform, trying to call for measures that worked best in Greater Manchester in relation to COVID. But I think that has really shown how important Metro Mayors can be at a sort of slightly more local level rather than just in Westminster. So I think the elections in 2021 will be quite exciting because people are kind of waking up to knowing who they are, and like, they've got a budget of £600 million. Like, they could really be like buying certain things and making a difference. So one thing which is linked to the Metro Mayor, which is already happening, which I want to kind of make a little plug for, is we've got a meeting on this Wednesday online to sort of bring groups together, whether you're like individuals or from pre-existing groups, to work out what does climate action look like in Cambridgeshire and how might we want to influence the Metro Mayor elections in May 2021. So coming together and working out whether we're going to do that at local levels within our own councils or own sort of parishes and communities, or whether there's stuff we want to do sort of at a semi-regional level to connect. There's also, and you probably guys are already aware, the Metro Mayor hasn't declared a climate emergency, but they have appointed a woman to look into what they can do. So they've now got this Cambridgeshire and Peterborough Independent Commission on Climate Change. And one of the first things they're doing is they've produced a resident survey where they want to find out from people what they think are the big issues on climate change and what they should be doing. The deadline is the 16th of November, so I really would encourage you, if you live locally, to fill it in, and also get all your friends and family and everyone else you know to fill it in. It is quite short, a lot of it is multiple choice, so hopefully it's not too big and scary to fill it in. But this is one small foot in the door, and perhaps there's loads more, and I'd be interested to hear what people are interested in doing, and we'll be talking about that on Wednesday, about what else we can do to influence this independent commission and make sure at a regional level across Cambridgeshire and Peterborough they are leading the way with climate change and not tagging behind as opposed to other areas. So really briefly, if you do want to get involved, like I said, there's a couple of groups locally, but as there's not loads in Cambridgeshire, do consider either joining an existing group, and I know there's loads within Cambridge City, and any of those groups are welcome to register with Friends of the Earth so that you can be connected to other groups and share sort of resources and trainings that we have. Or if you think, you know what, there's nothing happening in my area, perhaps I could get some other people together and we can support you to create your own group locally to start working out what you care about and taking action. Thanks. And yeah, there are my contact details, but I'll share them in the chat box as well.
Thank you, Annie. That was so excellent and really impressive, the portfolio of community projects that you have been supporting, including, of course, locally in Cambridge. And yes, please do also post a link to that resident survey. I think that would be a good thing for people to participate in if they are local in Cambridge. So this is now an opportunity to have a bit of a conversation. And there are one or two questions in the chat, which I'll come on to shortly. But let me start with you, Afsana, and just pose one or two questions, if I may. I was so impressed by how your action around air pollution was evidence-based. Those test tubes that you showed the pictures of, that really struck a chord with me. Very, very powerful. And of course, you've shared a link to that amazing video that the children made, which I was very moved by. So do please, everyone, do have a chance to look at that video again, because it's well worth several repeat views, I think. Afsana, communities are so diverse. You've made that really clear in your sort of presentation. How did you overcome the challenges of cultural, racial, and social differences in your work?
Thank you, Manish. A very good question. I think I from the beginning, I was kind of like aware of that as myself coming from BME community, you know, and as well as like working in a very, very diverse community, I realized very quickly that, as I said at the beginning, for in 2014, this is when I started suffering from nose bleeding. I didn't understand what the doctor was saying. They were using big medical and scientific words to explain to me. But for me, I was just like, I don't know still what is the wrong with me and my blood. Um, then when I went to actually study about it in a small word, you know, I came to realize like, oh, now I know it's actually something to do with like level of pollution in this area, you know. So when I was working with the BME communities, especially the diverse communities, I realized that I cannot go and talk to them like a scientist does. I have to be a community organizer who understands the language, you know, not necessarily the different translating in different languages, but who understand their language and they can understand me. So I made sure that I do not use any big word when I talk to them. I was actually talking to, started from like, you know, when they said housing is a big problem, then I made them to realize through the questioning, like, okay, do you not think, you know, the housing in this area opposed to like 2 street after, which is Wapping, which is a little bit like, you know, affluent area in Tower Hamlets, you know, why their housing is much better off than yours, you know. So they came to realize it is because they are more near to the highway, you know. They came to realize that in their these 3-4 street, the primary schools, the children are in primary school having more asthma than actually in Wapping. So I wanted them to actually see things that they normally did not see. They actually did not see these are factors, but for me these were the factors, you know. So I remember like when I started, I got like another £10,000 from another big organization to do some and engage BME community in the conversation, and they taught me about like, yeah, pollution and all this big word. I didn't understand. I was just like, if you're teaching me this, then you might as well go and talk to them. Let me go and study by myself. And then I actually focus. I focus on the borough. I learned from the borough by observing that, rather than actually what the scientists already told me, what the media is already giving me the statistics. And I guess this is the probably best way to go. People can see this is my borough and they can relate to that, rather than just those big words. You know, sometimes people don't understand.
Great, thank you, Afsana. There's been a really interesting question from Edward in the chat, which you may have had a chance to look at, which Edward says, you know, he's a transport campaigner and he's interested in your views about the tensions around creating low traffic neighbourhoods. And his comment is they do displace some traffic to main roads and increase pollution levels in homes and schools by main roads. So how can we direct people's energy towards reducing all motor traffic rather than rolling back LTNs? What's your view on that, Afsana?
Thank you very much for the question. I look at two different ways, I would say. One could be like the motor traffic, and also one could be, you know, when who is the people affecting, and how can we also prevent, what can we do, like both and right. So let me just start by giving an example. In Southwark, we found out there's a school very next to like a supermarket, and they always have in the morning from like 6 a.m. till 9, they've got loads of deliveries coming to the supermarket, and that is very close to the school. That affected noise pollution, air pollution, and all sorts of things. So what we did, we actually had a conversation with the supermarket, and we said, how about you doing all that before 6 a.m.? Of course, you want your business to go, you need the deliveries, but also we want our children, while they're coming, walking to the school, even if parents don't drive to school, but there's no point if they're still actually exposed to high level of pollution while they're actually walking to the school. So the supermarket were okay. So they started doing their, you know, their deliveries from the midnight, and they stopped that by 6 a.m. So we're not exposed to that. And what we also, the statistics we created were like 16 deliveries lorries, used to come before, now they don't come anymore. So imagine the level of pollution probably these 16 deliveries lorries would actually give or create. Now we are actually out of that. Then we also looked at other way, we cannot, like, all the supermarket won't agree with us, all these parents, some of them probably won't listen to us. So what can we do? We actually put, like, the green plant fence around the school, so that protect the schools. So to answer to your question is both ways, is like what the motor traffic, how can we prevent that, as well as sometimes even if they work very hard, they are like, we cannot stop that at all, like completely. There will be a level of that, but how do we minimize the risk on health? And my campaign mainly focuses on minimizing risk on health. So I hope it answers a little bit of your questions, that what can we do from both ends.
Thanks, Afsana. That's really great. Annie, I'm going to come to you now. I think you've shown so many examples of great local community work. For new groups who are just starting out on this journey, who are not quite sure how to start, what tools and tips can you recommend? Obviously, linking in with Friends of the Earth is the number one. I'd suggest, I'm sure that would be, but beyond, what other things that successful groups do that you can recommend from your experience?
I think like what Afsana did kind of shows that really well. Like, you need to work on issues that matter to people who are working with your group and work out who else you can work with. Often you can feel you're alone and you're the only person, caring about, this busy road or whatever, but there will be other people. I think with a lot of the groups I'm working with to start with, they kind of like run away. They're like, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do da. And actually it's really important to do that planning, to be like, okay, like, what is the issue? What is the biggest issue? What can we have an impact on? And who holds the power? So is it a council decision about the housing development, or is it someone else who makes the decision? So who has that power? Who do you need to get on board, and who can you work with? So yeah, are there local schools, communities, other people who might also share the same issue as you? And take that time to plan and build a group that you can work with, but also plan in order to work out who it is you're going to talk to and how you're going to talk to them. So yeah, I think, and I'm an impatient person, I'm definitely like, let's just go do it now. But I think, yeah, planning and working out who there is probably like the most important thing to be doing. And there's lots of resources on the Friends of the Earth website and to support you with working out who to work with, and what your priorities might be in your local group.
That's great, Annie. I had a question, and Valerie too has a question on how do we work in these so extraordinary times around lockdown and social distancing, where we're not able to come together. You've been doing that very successfully, it sounds like, in the last few months. So what's your tip, Annie, for that? And we'll come to you, Afsana, as well to answer that, because obviously your work hasn't stopped. Annie first.
Yeah, so I think it's a really difficult time, and in some ways it's easier to communicate with people. Like, so many people are like much more used to Zoom and video calls than before, but equally, not everyone has access to computers. Like, some people are still having to be like nurses, doctors during this pandemic, and like understandably have other priorities right now. So I think we need to be understanding that it might be easier to reach some people because they're not having to work out about childcare because they're at home and they can join meetings more easily. But others, like, it's a tiny room and they've got 5 kids running around, like, it's just not possible. So I think, yeah, to be understanding is important. But there are still things we can do. So especially with council lobbying, they've moved all of their council meetings online, and you can still attend them online. You can pick up the phone and talk to councillors. You can do online meetings like this. Like, it's not ideal, but COVID has only exacerbated some of the already existing inequalities, and has just shown that we can't stop and wait until COVID is over to like sort out air pollution or to sort out home insulation. Like, they need to be worked on now, and there are creative ways that we can keep those conversations alive and sort of move things forward. That'd be my short answer.
That's great, Annie. And I think my experience is that actually, in some ways, these new ways of accessing and working with local authorities are here to stay. They're not going to immediately, we're not going to roll back to just in-person stuff. There's going to be this blend once we can meet together. So in that way, there's more accessibility. So that's a positive, perhaps, to take away. But thank you. Afsana, how have you been working in these most unusual of times?
Yeah, I guess this is the new normal, and everyone trying to normalizing it, which I really want to deny. I don't want to make this as a normal life, because I'm one of the person who likes going out and meeting people in person. So what we actually found, we beginning of the COVID, we just middle of the COVID, we done a listening campaign. Which had its own struggle. A lot of people, we found out there's more injustice like digital inclusion. Not enough parents had enough laptops to even participate in the conversation, right? So we identified them, and we actually shared, we did a campaign on digital inclusion. And soon we had, and parents had, probably 1 or 2 devices in their house, one for children, one for themselves. What we realized, from our listening campaign, we found that mental health was a big one. There is domestic violence is another one, especially in diverse community. It's happening. We also found loneliness in especially like 65 plus leaders that we have. They're having this problem. So what we realized very quickly, how can we do that? And everyone was saying they're missing their community. So because now everybody has now access to some sort of devices, we all live in different places. We do one-to-one conversation or group conversation while being in a local park, where we are maintaining the social distancing, following the rules, and keeping ourselves protected and other people protected. So in that way, it helps a little bit of with mental health. And also because of the team meeting, you are actually connected. People can deal a little bit of their anxiety and loneliness as well. And also, like, people coming out from their house, they can share their anxiety around like abuse, domestic abuse, and other women and community leaders they're helping. So we're trying to see how can we tap few of them at the same time. What we realized, which we didn't actually realize before while we are always in this street, that how much our community is in need of green space. We don't have enough green space, especially in Tower Hamlets. The parks are, and I'm going to say that, the parks are smaller than even probably my garden in Kent. So how can you think about a very healthy neighborhood if you don't have enough green space? So while we were doing all this meeting, we realized we don't have green space. We thought about next project should be creating more green space. Even if we have a little bit of space, how do we make it a little bit more colorful and take ownership of the community? Because people living in flat and they don't have garden, soon they're out of their room, they don't feel like the community is theirs. So we're looking for a lot of funding, and we just applied for a big funding for local for London Mayor. And again, we saw so many people came together because of COVID. We came to see how much we lack green space. And through neighborhood work, we came to realize that we actually don't take full ownership of our own community. So the COVID is helping us to see the health inequality as well as our own lack of interest in our own community. We can always ask mayor to do a lot of things, but we don't take a lot of ownership. So this is one of the creative things we are doing at the moment.
Great, Afsana. Well, on behalf of everyone who's attended and Cambridge Zero and the Climate Change Festival, thank you to you and to Annie for some fantastic insights about how localism and community work is really changing, is moving the dial on us mitigating the climate emergency. I've just put a couple of messages on the chat around how else, so much in this festival that you can access. Please do go to the link to look at how you can tap into it. It's also available on demand, including this session, slides of which you can get from my colleague Maria, and I've included her email address. And of course, we want your feedback, so please do feedback too. But and Afsana's just, and I think Annie, before you shared your contact details for any further information. But once again, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the Sunday and the rest of the festival. All the very best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.